The Ed Bernstein Show. Now, here's Ed.
If you're wondering what's new in the city, well, my guest today, Brian Knudsen, he knows it all. City Councilman Brian Knudsen. How are we doing in the city? I mean, things, you look at cities around America and they seem to be nothing but problems. And yeah, I know we have issues here, but it doesn't seem like we have some of the big issues that some of the other metropolitan cities have.
You know, I was at an event last night with the mayors, both of them, Oscar and Carolyn, and they were talking about how quickly Las Vegas has become what Oscar would determine as a cesspool back before he was mayor, and then what we have now. And you see the incredible growth in Symphony Park, which is right next to the Smith Center. So there's still in the ground, there's another building that we just approved yesterday. That'll be a 32-story condo tower. I represent the medical district. There's at least 5 buildings that are going in the next 2 years. Apartment complexes, medical complexes, public health labs. I think that Las Vegas, much like any other city, is struggling with a lot of issues, but the forward momentum is moving faster than everywhere else in the country. It's a great time to be in Las Vegas.
Let's talk about the medical part of this, because I know it's close to your heart and close to mine. We both have children that were...
I've experienced the medical side of Las Vegas, and
yes.
I would like to say we can be a lot better, with my children in particular.
Me too.
Yeah.
And Brian, I just don't have a solution. I mean, I just don't really understand the problem. When you talk to people in the know, they'll tell you, well, we don't have, the hospitals don't really have the internships and the residency programs to keep the doctors in here. But it still seems to me that if you've got a complicated medical issue, you got to go out of town.
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time with doctors. The medical district I represent, and it's right near UMC Valley Hospital. The challenge with our medical community is they're always fighting with each other. They got to stop fighting and identify there's a common goal, work towards that common goal, identify what steps need to be taken with regards to graduate medical education, with physician licensing in the state of Nevada, and then reimbursements at the Medicaid level. If they can identify common goals with those 3 things, it would change dramatically overnight. We have a first step with the UNLV School of Medicine. That's a big step.
Mm-hmm.
We're graduating doctors every day. They're going to demand careers here. They're going to demand it. And so we are going to see growth in the medical district. We are going to see growth in the healthcare field. And 10 years from now, we'll look back and we'll be one of the best cities in the country with healthcare, just because of what we've done in the infrastructure.
I hope that comes true. I was very hopeful when the Cleveland Clinic came here, but they kind of just took a niche and stayed with that niche. And I know at one time there were plans for other medical facilities to surround, and even for the Cleveland Clinic to become more of a generalized hospital. But that never developed.
I would encourage you to drive through the medical district, because you'll see still in the ground, that'll be a women's healthcare center. That's their first. The medical school has a parking lot. It's a big parking lot. Right now they're going through architectural renderings, and that is a fully funded project of 2 additional buildings. That'll be a public health lab, biomedical research, and medical office space. Wellness Way, which is right there next to the medical school, will have a hotel, an apartment complex, and about 100,000 square feet of medical office space. All of those projects are are funded and are going through the planning process now. So it's just a couple of years away.
That sounds exciting.
And you can drive through it now. You'll see all the construction cones. You can hate me right now because it's a lot of construction, and people are very, very angry right now. But in 5 years, it'll be a vastly different space to look at.
Well, I don't think they're angry only about that area. It just seems to me like the
a lot of
whole
construction.
Town is a construction zone, particularly the freeway.
Yes.
Right? And look, it's outside of your control. You have nothing to do with what's going on.
I'll take responsibility for the cones in the medical district. Those are mine. I own them.
Yeah.
We need new streets. We need new sidewalks. I'll own them. And when they're gone, that'll be much better.
Well, that's terrific. I lived in that area for 40 years. I mean, it's a great area. That whole, medical district area around Rancho.
It's amazing. And right now, if you go down Shadow in particular or Pinto, you'll see 15-foot sidewalks. They're tree-lined streets. It's looking nice. I've put aside about $2.5 million in public art. We're just going through the RFP process now to pick out artists. So if you drive through there a year from now, you're going to see a lot of public art. You're going to see some murals, but you're going to see some statues. We're negotiating with the Neon Museum to have the free aspirin sign right there on Charleston. It's going to be a unique and fun environment to work, play, and live in.
Wow, love it, love it, love it, love it. You got first elected in 2019. You spent a lot of, number of years at City Hall working for the city, so you came into the job with a lot of experience. What have you learned in the last 4 years? To be patient?
I love government. I'm a probably terrible politician. I love the policy work. I love behind the scenes. I've learned how to get my picture taken a lot. That seems to be what you have to do as a politician. I learned how to cut ribbons. I think that we really need to surround ourselves with great leaders within local government and county government and state government that know how to push policy through. And at the policy maker side, the elected official side, you got to stand up and know what's right and fight really hard for it, because there's everybody that's going to try to detract you.
We have a very diverse city council. I can remember when I first moved here, there was all older guys, and there was a story recently I saw, I forgot what city it was, and they elected their first all-female city council. We have Asians, Hispanics, gays, women. You got everything, right? Mm-hmm. How does that work? Is that a positive thing to, I don't know, to have as a direction to be diverse, or is it? What's your feeling about that? I mean,
I have mixed feelings, and I'll be very honest about them. Diversity is hard. It's challenging. We don't come from the same space. We don't think the same. When we compromise, I think it's better for everybody. If we're constantly trying to fight with each other, it makes the process longer and more challenging, and you don't get the desired outcome. I think compromise is the name of the game. I find it interesting with our city council, when we were the most diverse council I can think of. We had a diverse city staff, and then in the last round of staff changes, because we had a new city manager, new city attorney, new department directors, our staff became more and more white. And I don't know why that happened, but it did happen. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I think about, is the more diverse we become, the more challenging the conversations become. But you probably get better outcomes on the back end. We probably end up in a better place.
It's the same thing that happens to the population, right? I mean, the population is becoming more and more diverse as well.
Yeah.
Right? Why can't we all just get along, right?
I don't know if it's what we look like, or our sexual preferences that make those conversations challenging. It's our ability as adults to figure out that our job is to compromise. Our job is to figure out both sides and try our very best to come to the middle.
You're running again this year.
I am.
Are the issues different in 2023, 2024 than they were in 2019?
Significantly different.
In what regard?
Much more political. It was very political when I was running. It was right in the midst of the Trump presidency, and people were very, very political. It's Democrat or Republican. My seat is nonpartisan. It's become more and more and more partisan. People expect you to have an alignment with Democrat or Republican.
Even if you don't declare something and it's not on the ballot,
it's the first question people ask me.
The Republicans know who the Republicans are, the Democrats know who the Democrats are. It's
the very first question that comes up in every phone call and every constituent meeting. It's, what are you, who do you represent? And it's sad to me, because 99.9% of my daily job has nothing to do with politics. The things that you see on Twitter or Facebook have nothing to do with government, nothing. And so that's been what I try to remind people, is government and politics are very different. Government is really about a lot of people who are paid by our taxpayers, who care about their community, who love their jobs, who are doing parks and doing sewers and doing fire stations and doing police officer duties. Politics have nothing to do with it, and people get those two things confused, and we need to do a better job to separate them.
It seems to me that that the most difficult issue is that of homelessness. Mm-hmm. No matter where you go. I was just in Washington, D.C. You were there recently as well. There's tents all over Washington. Most major cities now have homeless tents and people sleeping in the streets. I don't care if it's San Diego or San Francisco or New York. It doesn't matter. Chicago. In Las Vegas, maybe not as bad, but pretty bad.
I think it's gotten dramatically worse over the last 10 years. And so it's something that I pay enormous attention to. I've spent about probably 50% of my working hours on developing a crisis response system with support from our law enforcement partners, the Metropolitan Police Department, Sheriff Kevin McMahill, who's been amazing. He's a great leader. He and I came together with Justin Jones from the Clark County and Michael Knapp from Clark County and Cedric Creer from the city of Las Vegas, and we started pulling together city representatives, county representatives, state representatives, hospitals, law enforcement, fire departments, and we have a system that will be up and running in about 2 years. Fully funded. RFPs are on the street now. We're identifying crisis response centers and places for those folks who are on the streets to go to sober up, to get connected to resources. But it is a major challenge. And one of our biggest issues here in Southern Nevada is we don't have enough homes for people to go to. So we can pull them off the street, we can sober them up, we can get them food, we can get them clothing, and after that we don't have a place for them to go. And so we're 50,000 units short, and every apartment complex that we approve gets us closer to getting a place for them to go.
And there are some cities that are converting. Was it New York is converting?
LA's the
LA or condos or office buildings into apartments.
Yeah, I struggle with that. I think what we've learned from our experience with HUD technical assistance with the city is people don't need to get off the streets for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. They need to get off the streets permanently. And if we have them into short-term housing options, like right now we're doing some of this in Southern Nevada, but it's really prominent in LA where they're converting hotels and they're having people move in for 30 days to stabilize them. After that 30 days is gone, they're back out on the street. So what we need is long-term housing options and resources to keep people housed. And we just don't have enough apartments here. So that's been the biggest push with the cities and the county is we need more and more apartment complexes. And that's the most difficult conversation as an elected official I can have because there is not a single resident who has a home that wants to live anywhere near an apartment complex. And so I have to balance out the homeowners who are angry about an apartment complex that's going to be near their home. And I understand it, I get it, but that's how we move out of this situation.
You know, I was in Peru recently, and I noticed there that everybody has a job. There was very few, if any, homeless going on in Peru, in Lima, but there were swarms of people whose job it was to pick up the trash, to sweep the benches. I mean, tend to the flowers, the plants, and I realized that they are paying these people. I mean, look, homelessness costs anyway, right?
It's very expensive.
In America, it seems like we can't figure out how to put them to work.
The model is flipped, I think, in America. This is my personal opinion, is we have a number of people, especially in Las Vegas, who are service line workers. So if you're ordering on Amazon and you have your driver drive up, if he's not making at least $18 to $25 an hour, he's not going to be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment.
Right.
He just won't be able to.
Right.
And if he has a family and it's a full-time job, he will not be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment.
I don't think you can afford it at $18 an hour
I don't think you can either. The rates are changing. So if you're a Starbucks employee, if you're a Target employee, all of these organizations where they're serving our community, if you're a police officer, if you're a teacher, if you're not making enough money to pay for a 2-bedroom apartment, a 3-bedroom apartment, then you have that risk of one bad decision, you're going to be on the street.
Right.
That's it. And so we have to have a housing stock and we have to pay people enough to live in that housing stock.
Do you have information on, like, what percentage of homelessness is in that category? I mean, because I hear all the time that it has to do with mental health. That it's all about medication and mental health programs.
The statistic that I do know is that if you get kicked out of your apartment for whatever reason, you have about 8 to 10 days on the streets before you start experiencing some pretty severe trauma and mental health challenges. You're also exposed to a number of illegal drugs. And so if you're kicked out of your house, you made a bad decision, you get kicked out, or you can't pay your rent, you get evicted, you're on the street, you have about 8 to 10 days before you start having some of those challenges. So the goal of government is to prevent you from being on the street longer than 8 to 10 days. We want to know about it immediately so we can rehouse you immediately. That's the cheapest option, is we need somewhere for you to go. We need to keep you housed as long as you can be housed. We don't want you on the street. But then you start having some of those longer term challenging, and once you experience trauma, it's hard to come back from it. If you're going through an addiction issue because you've been on the street too long, it's very hard to come back from it, and it's incredibly expensive for taxpayers.
Yeah. Boy, it doesn't sound good.
It can be good. We just have to reshift our thinking. We have to be prepared to struggle through the challenges that we're currently experiencing, and we have to think about 20 years from now, how do we survive this? How do we do better?
And to make matters even worse, and post-COVID, it seems like the downtown area has become deserted.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. Hey, I'll give you my story. So I spend a lot of time on Main Street. I love Main Street. And all the restaurants, all the bartenders, they all know me. And there was one time, this was a couple weeks ago, I was there at 5:30, and I was having a drink, and I said, "You guys are so slow. There's nobody here." And the bartender said, "It's 5:30. You leave by 6, and we start getting really busy at 8 to 9 p.m. So I think I just got too old to see how busy they really are. Downtown is incredibly busy and doing incredibly well right now.
But you're referring to kind of the newer, artsy area of downtown where the restaurants on what's that, south of Charleston,
district,
right? In the Arts District. I was really referring to the high-rises, the legal sector, the banking sector downtown. Everybody seems the office. Everybody's working remote.
The COVID changed that dramatically. People are working from home now. I don't have an answer for that. I think we are going to have to rethink what downtowns look like, because if we don't have people working downtown, that changes the environment. Our tourist corridors, our eating and dining corridors, those are doing great. But you're right, the office complex, that's going to change. We're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah. And at the same time, we built new courtrooms down there? The city?
The city did.
The city did, right, yeah.
Those are always busy. We always have people in and out of the court system. Yeah. The government also has the Civic Plaza going in the city. So we have 2 buildings currently under construction.
And what's going to be in that area? This is right off of Main Street and Bonneville,
and
right?
Clark. So
and
Bonneville. Yeah, so it's the City Hall complex. So one building is going to be completely filled with city staff. The city is growing, so city staff are growing in numbers. The second building we're going to start leasing out to other groups outside. One of the buildings will be a restaurant, or one of the spaces will be a restaurant. But that's, in my opinion, and this is really Carolyn Goodman that's kind of pushed this effort, is we are the heart of government in downtown core. And we see that. We have the Clark County building, we have the courts buildings, we have the city building, we have all of these government employees, and that's an economic driver in and of itself.
True. Look, we had Goodman as mayor for a long time. How many years has it been?
It's going to be 25 when they're done.
That's 25 years has been
yeah.
Goodman as mayor. That's going to change next year.
Yes.
When you think about that, I mean, do you have any expectations or thoughts of how that change is going to look?
It will be drastically different. For those who have worked with the city or around the city will be a drastically different place. And it's primarily because of the Goodmans, but it's also because all of our city staff, they started with the Goodmans, they're retiring with the Goodmans. We'll have new city leadership, we'll have new mayor. It's a very diverse and new council, and so you'll see a change in that could either be positive, it could be negative. My hope is that we can sustain all the great things that the Goodmans and our leadership has built, and hopefully wane off all the negative things that could come with that much change.
How are we doing in transportation in the city? On one hand, you have Elon Musk wanting to do, tunnels and transportation web underground. On the other hand, it seems like our buses are not all that effective. I don't know. I mean, the monorail is kind of in the middle of. It doesn't make sense.
So I sit on the Regional Transportation Commission Board. I am very, very anxious about our future of transit and mobility. The reason is one of the funding options is a fuel revenue index tax. It's a tax that you pay at the gas pump. The more and more electric vehicles, the less and less tax goes towards road constructions and transit. In this last legislative session, the bill to extend the tax passed the Senate, passed the Assembly, and the governor vetoed it. So that puts the future of transit and construction of roads in dire straits in about 3 years from now. So we have got to work as a community to understand what buses do, because all those people that we talked about earlier that need apartments, they also need to have transit. Right. If they don't have buses, we're really in a world of hurt. So as a community, we have to understand that if you're living in a house in Summerlin and you want to go to Target, you want to go to Starbucks, you want your kids to go to a school and have a teacher, you're going to have to pay for some of these things because we don't pay enough for them to happen on their own.
You're in the medical district, and where else? Where is the extension of?
I go from
boundaries?
Rancho up to Durango and Sahara over to Cheyenne. So I have, as I like to say, I have the poorest of the poor. I have the working middle class, the people who retired, who built Las Vegas, and then I have the richest of the rich, and I get to work with all of them.
Right.
They all care about the same things. They express themselves differently.
Yeah. City council has always been a part-time job, right?
Yes.
Are you an advocate that we make it, more of a full-time job and pay a full-time salary, or you think it's better? I mean, I hear arguments both ways. Hey, it's a citizens, council, and we want people who have real jobs and other lives to come in and contribute to city government. On the flip side of that, I hear, hey, there's so much to be done. We need people really focused full-time on the city's problems.
Well, no one's ever asked me that question before. I am putting in a good 40 to 50 hours a week in being a city council person. I don't have another job.
But most of the other city council people do.
Most do, yeah. I think there's lots of things you can do if you have the bully pulpit and you have an interest and a passion and a knowledge base. I would hate for people who don't have a knowledge base to jump in and think they do. And sometimes as an elected official, you're told you're an expert in everything. But the truth is it's pretty hard to be an expert in everything, and you really have to drill down and understand what you're doing so you don't screw it up too badly.
Right.
So I hopefully I'm of the former. I have some experience. I have a lot of education. I have a lot of time working with these groups, and I've used the bully pulpit to organize them and work on initiatives that matter, I think. That's full-time. I don't know if everybody is doing it the same way.
Well, I would guess that everybody's not doing it the same way, but do you think that we should eventually have a full-time city council?
I think there's opportunity to think through that. I don't know if I have an answer for you. I don't know that every ward is the same. So some of the wards have a lot of HOAs. They don't really have a lot of constituent issues or concerns. I have almost no HOAs. I have a very active constituency. I have people who are very aggressively going after speed humps and stop signs, and they want streets cleaned and they want more police, and so it becomes more of a job for me. But like in the Summerlin area, there just isn't enough of those things because those have all been paid for through some form of an SID or an HOA fee.
Well, it sounds to me like so much of what you do is zoning issues, right?
Land use is the
Land
primary
use,
responsibility.
the streets, the roads, the zoning. Every time there's a zoning issue, it seems that somebody's for it. As soon as somebody's for it, somebody else is against it because it impacts somebody else differently. You got to be like Solomon all the time, weighing the interests, right?
Like I mentioned before, the apartment complex, that's probably the best example of the land use challenges. So if I were to be engaged in a decision around where an apartment complex is going to go, I can guarantee the neighborhood anywhere near there is going to hate me if I support it. And they're angry, and I understand it. My job is to absorb all that, understand their issues, compromise where I can, and understand that at some point we have to move our community forward. And you have to be okay with losing an election because of it, because it's not about the election, it's not about me, it's about what our community can look like 20 years from now.
Now you've just hit on what I think is the biggest problem in politics. It seems that, and I'm really referring to our national elected officials.
Yeah.
They get elected and their major goal is, hey, how do I get reelected? How do I hold on to power? Instead of what am I sent here to do and how do I get it done? In that regard, I think that city government is oftentimes much more responsive than some of the federal stuff.
We can move a lot faster. We're a lot more nimble, even than the county and the state. Great elected officials there, but the city has a culture of just being very, very responsive. And my job right now, as I see it, and as I ran for office, was to build up the medical district. So lots of cones, lots of steel in the ground, but it's not done yet. I think it'll be done in probably 3 years, and then I'll probably peace out of the job because it'll be done.
Well, good. And you have it thereafter. What do I do?
I don't know. I also have an 8-year-old and an almost 6-year-old, and
Right.
I've got to raise my kids, and that's equally, if not more so, time-consuming and more important to me than everything else. So I have to manage those things too.
I should say, in the past, and we're just about out of time, but I wanted to make this point, is city elections have always been in the spring in the past. Off-year elections, normally, I don't know, 5, 10, 15% of the people end up electing somebody because the turnout's so poor.
Yeah.
But for the last election, and I guess this election as well, it's in November. This will be a presidential year. It'll be a big turnout, right?
It'll be president, Senate, Congress, state, county, judges, and then at the very, very bottom, you'll have the mayor and me. That's where we're at.
Right. So it's hard to get the word out.
It's very hard.
It's hard. So I'm encouraging all our viewers, hey, look, because these are important. I mean, what you do affects us a whole lot more oftentimes than what a U.S. Senator is doing.
Yes.
So people need to explore, evaluate, and read up on these things. Brian Knudsen, thank you so much.
Thank you
Good
so
luck
much. I
in the
really
election.
appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
My name is Mark LaSala, and I'm a real client of Ed Bernstein's. I was driving on the freeway, the truck cut me off, dropped this whole drive shaft, had a piece fly through my windshield, went across my body, and across my face. I found Ed's office through word of mouth. They just said he's the best of the best. They put you at ease. They show you compassion. They have your back.
I'm Ed Bernstein. You've heard a lot of promises made by lawyers on TV, but if you really want dignity, respect, and trust, call me. The call is free.